Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR. I've got a lot to talk about going on in the Big Ten. It is the Big Ten Huddle where we cover every single Big Ten team on our live shows. We do our best to mention every single Big Ten team at least one time, and I got my guy with me here to do it again because we have a segment today where we will give one player for every single Big Ten team. Zack, we love to talk about it. We love to have you here. How you doing?
Good. I will say I'm a little bummed that we are also not talking about how the SEC stinks, but we're here to talk about the Big Ten. So
I was gonna say, is this the SEC stinks huddle or the Big Ten huddle?
it's the Big Ten huddle, but that presupposes that we think the SEC stinks.
Listen, all right, it's hard to find. It's hard to find an SEC stinks segment out there every single week because they don't have very many people delivering information about how much they stink. So,
Have we talked about the fact that Vandy beat Alabama? It's been a while since we brought that up.
Let's just relive. Let's have a watch party where we rewatch every single SEC loss from last year, right?
Yeah. Remember how we wanted to put Alabama in the playoff and then they got beat by Michigan's second string? Remember that?
Did we want to? I thought we both had them out after they lost to Oklahoma.
We didn't want Alabama in.
Oh, okay.
But everybody else did.
Everybody else did.
Yeah. Why is SMU in when Alabama could be in? Ah.
Yeah, not a great look there for them. All right, let's see who we got in the chat with us here. Billy Tuesday says evening huddlers, and Billy Tuesday said JR looking dashing. Yeah, there's a no hat, so apparently my perfectly feathered hair. This is just what the people want, and what the people want, I give to them.
It's like layered tonight.
I didn't mean to do
it. You got like a little bit of layers in the.
I think it's the lighting because when I look in the mirror, it does not look good. Or I'm just really critical of myself. One of those two.
It might be that.
Could be that. Phillips here, he says the SEC stinks. Could just be a weekly episode on every player at Georgia with criminal charges. Yeah, they do give us content for that on a weekly to monthly basis at times. So
yeah.
Philip says you're envious of my hair. Is that true, Zack?
A little bit. Yeah.
Oh,
like, okay. I mean, I'm like starting the LeBron James treatment with my hair. Like, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like starting to roll.
It's not nearly LeBron bad though.
It's not nearly, but LeBron's a couple years older than I am, so it's running back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we'll just start calling you LeBron here soon. How about
that? Oh man. LaHair. How's LaHair doing?
All right, Zack, we got a lot to get to tonight. And guys, we are doing our best to try and keep this show under an hour tonight. We will see how it works out. We're going to do our best. We're going to try our best to get there. So, Philip, in honor of you and your commenting, we are going to start with the Illini as James Thompson Jr. has been flashing and doing well in spring camp lately. There's a lot of talk about him possibly becoming a difference maker on this team next year. Obviously, Illinois has had a number of good interior defensive linemen in the Brett Bielema run. It's been a huge part of helping them become who they are. Under Brett Bielema, so really like the information that's coming out. Illinois went out in the transfer portal and basically took Wisconsin's entire defensive line and was just like, you are here now, play here. And James Thompson Robinson was a huge piece of that. Zack, I'm curious your thoughts. Do you think James Thompson Robinson, do you believe the hype coming out of spring camp that he could be a difference maker for this team this year?
Yeah, I mean, they need guys to step up on the D line, right? Like that's one of the things that they would love, more of a rotation. And like he's a talented guy. Came from Wisconsin, right? He was a Wisconsin transfer, if I remember.
Yes. Yeah, he was one of the Wisconsin. There were 3, maybe 4 of them. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and so he was a 4-star prospect in the transfer portal. Number 10 defensive lineman overall in the portal, and so. If you're going to take a guy like that, you hope that he hits. You hope that he's the type of player that can make a deep impact. Some people thought he could be an NFL prospect. So he better hit, right? So that's what you're hoping for. And if he is that, it's just an anchor to that layer of the defense, which they sorely need, because if you have that plus what you have in the back end for Illinois, we were saying 2 nights ago that we think Illinois could upset Ohio State. That's how you have guys on every level of the defense that can disrupt you. And you have a quarterback who's steady enough to play his way, to play above his skis a little bit, to pull the upset. That's how you do it. And like James Thompson can be that guy, 6'6", 300 pounds. He's a dude. So I absolutely believe the hype.
Yeah, no, I believe the hype too, and I think that Brett Bielema knows that if this defense is going to reach their full potential, they have to have the dudes on the defensive line in order to make that happen. This is one of the things that we've seen, like I said, every single year from this Illinois defense that it's good is they have dudes on the defensive line that are wrecking havoc and making it torturous for the other offensive lines. When you're a team like Illinois, you have to win the line of scrimmage in order to win these games. I think it's going to be really difficult for Illinois to win the line of scrimmage against Ohio State because Ohio State is bringing back a number of players from last year's defense or offensive line. So, I mean, there is that possibility, but at the same time, they also have a new offensive line coach, a lot of hype around them. I like the new offensive line coach, but as always, we need to see what they look like in the games. How do things function? Yep. How do things work out? And it's gonna be huge for him. Philip says Heisman contender Luke Altmaier. He's offensive difference maker. Don't worry, Philip. Don't worry, Philip. All right. Anything else on James Thompson Jr. before we move on here, Zach?
Just one other thing to note: because of his injury, he's a 6th-year senior, so it's not just talent; it's experience.
Yeah.
So.
Which is huge for the rest of the defensive line as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, very good. All right. Next one. Michigan's freshman Shamari Earls is impressing early at Michigan's spring practices as well. So, Zach, Bryce Underwood, not the only freshman that has been impressing early. Ron Bellamy, the receivers coach, he says he says that Shamari Earls has been one of the cornerbacks that they've really been looking at a whole lot more and having a harder time with. He compared him to Will Johnson a little bit with kind of some of his size and his speed, stuff like that. Didn't say he would be Will Johnson. Want to make sure we say that clearly. He didn't say he would be Will Johnson, but he did compare him with his size, speed, stuff like that. So a lot of hype here for Shamari Earls. There is the possibility, and I'm not saying I believe this, but people have been saying it, so I'm going to bring it up. There is the possibility that Shamari Earls just looks good because Michigan doesn't really have good wide receivers. But it's not like they were hyping up the entire defensive backs. Like Shamari Earls was the one in particular they were hyping up here. So, Zach, your thoughts, Shamari Earls, freshman, impressing early.
I think it bodes well for the entire secondary because they're not counting on him to be a starter, right? Like Jair Hill, Zeke Berry, like those are most likely your starting corners. But if you have a third that can rotate in there, and then you have Rod Moore at safety coming back from injury, who seems like he's progressing like they expect him to, it becomes, I think, a really big deal, especially for teams that have 3 talented receivers, right? Who's a team they're going to face with 3 talented wide receivers? It's the last game of the season, which they have won 4 in a row. So,
do they play Oregon this year?
I don't think so.
Let's look at their schedule really, really fast. I did not plan on doing this, but I'm going to look at it really fast. You tell me, outside of Ohio State, who has the best wide receivers here? New Mexico, Oklahoma, Central Michigan. Nebraska is probably the first one on here. Nebraska.
Yeah, I was going to say Nebraska, maybe SC and Washington.
Maybe SC, Washington. Maryland. I mean, Maryland has developed wide receivers well, but I don't know if they've developed a 3-man wide receiver group.
Yeah.
That compares to those. But Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby Lane, at least those 2 together, I think for USC probably takes the cake. To me, it's probably USC or Nebraska. Washington has Denzel Boston, and I like that, but I don't know as much about the depth behind them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, I mean, this bodes well. Yankees in the chat, and he's telling us, come on, guys, that Ohio State has the best receivers. Of course we do.
we said outside of Ohio State, Yankee, outside of Ohio State.
But here'd be my point though. Who's the team they want to beat more than anybody else? It's Ohio State. And this bodes well for that, because if they have a third corner that's long, 6'2", 200 pounds, they need long corners to face up against guys like Jeremiah Smith, like Carnell Tate, like Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter. Like that is, I think, a huge deal.
Yeah, and Yankee said, can we teach these DBs to catch balls on offense? Why don't we have world-class DBs and JUCO wide receivers all year? I'm trying to find the quote from from Ron Bellamy. He said something in here about like maybe he could play both ways. I don't think he was being completely serious, but I mean, it's if I'm Michigan, I'm not ruling it out. Like we talked about Will Johnson last year, possibly playing both ways. If I'm Michigan, I'm not ruling it out. Now, maybe you kind of destroy your wide receiver room a little bit by not expressing very much confidence in them. But, I mean, if we're just being real, like, if Shamari Earls can catch the ball and he can put some moves on dudes, at least as a decoy, right? Because you're going to give extra attention. If there's a defensive back out there at wide receiver, at the very least, you're going to be giving extra attention to him, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I actually... at this point, I would say if he has skill, if he's the number 3 corner and he's not going to be getting a ton of snaps on offense or on defense, why not try him at receiver if he can catch?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm right there with you. Trying to think if there was anything else in here that he said. He's pushing through the adjustments of college football after suffering his injury late in high school. Oh, yeah, that's the other story of this. That's the last thing I wanted to mention. Shamari Earls did suffer an injury his senior year of high school. There's some speculation there that Georgia let him walk. I think most of that came from the Georgia camp. That kind of sounds like, we cooled on the recruit type of deal. Like you lose a recruit. It's like, we didn't really want him anyway. And it's like, yeah, okay. So there is a thought process there with that. But, I mean, he was a highly rated player before the injury. He dropped a little bit after the injury, if I'm not mistaken, but like that's just what happens when you get injured late in the year like that, especially your senior year. So I have a lot of confidence in Shamari Earls. I think he's going to do a good job at Michigan, and I think he's going to see the field at some point this year. Maybe not a starter, like you said, Jair Hill. And then the other piece of this, real quick, and then we'll move on, Zach. The other piece of this, he's going to have a safety behind him that is ranked as one of the top 10 safeties in the nation this year. Rod Moore is coming back. What do you think about that?
Well, like I said, I think the secondary is poised to have another great year, which again, there's not many teams that are going to challenge them vertically, but for the teams that could try, it's going to be a tough road. So like for Ohio State fans who might think, well, maybe Michigan is going to take a step back because they lost Will Johnson. Not that mattered this past year. Like you got another thing coming. Like they have a defensive backfield that is going to be formidable.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's move on to Dylan Raiola. Zach, how have we not mentioned Dylan Raiola? We've been talking about spring stuff for a while now. We got Dylan Raiola to talk about here, man. Dylan Raiola, he's had some growth going into his sophomore year. A lot of talk about him spring camp. He's been meeting with the media a lot, really getting himself out there, speaking to the media more, getting questions, stuff like that. Matt Rule has talked about his command in the huddle being better this spring, so that's obviously good to hear about. But the big story sounds like Dylan Raiola has done his best to try to lose more weight this offseason, so that way he can be a little bit more mobile, a little bit more agile with how he plays the game. So, I mean, if I'm a Nebraska fan, I love that more than anything. I just love that Dylan Raiola, like, he is not content with what happened last year. He didn't look at last year and say, made a bowl game, we won the bowl game, what's up? Like, he obviously wants more, and that's what you want. You want a competitor who wants more, who's willing to change things about themselves, change their body type in order to be a better player. What's your thoughts here, Zach?
I said, do Nebraska fans need help being excited about their team in April? I'm
No,
not.
they didn't.
And that's not meant to be a shot at Nebraska, but it's like we're winning the national championship, guys. You went 5-7 2 years ago. Like, let's halt it. I
What's
do.
the it? Have you listened to the Common guys lately,
Common
or the
fan.
Common fan? Have you
Well,
listened to them
we
lately?
had TJ on here. I haven't listened to their show recently, but when TJ was on here, he doesn't hide from that stuff.
He was funny the other day on the Common fan. He was talking about like fourth year in a row, fifth year in a row, talking about it. I was just like, I love that they embrace it. Like they know
Yeah.
it, they embrace it. I love that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, but again, and this is take it with a grain of salt, but I like everything that they're doing. And so the biggest thing though is, does it translate to wins? But I love that there's accountability. Everybody knew that Raiola needed to lose weight. He is, and that's a good thing. He is being the face of the program by being more out there, which I think is a big deal because that's leadership. That's again, it's accountability. So like, I think that's good, but we need to see it in the fall.
I agree. I think like this says a couple of different things to me. Number one, it says that he is more confident in himself because he's more confident in the offense. I think
Yeah.
that shined through at times last year, that he just wasn't super confident in the
Yeah.
offense, especially toward the end of Marcus Satterfield there. And I think he has more trust in what's his name, Dana Holgerson, there now. So I like that. I think that's a huge piece of it. And I also think like when you become the leader, you recognize that there are specific pieces to your game, and he's not shying away from those things. And I mean, I know he's a football player. He probably doesn't care about it as much as some other people do, but not a lot of people would want to get up on a podium and be like, "Yeah, I weigh too much. I gotta bring that down." Again, he's a football player and he's he's in good shape. He's not exactly, pushing 300 or anything like that, but still, for him to get up there, do that, it sounds like he's being vocal about this stuff with his teammates as well. I like this not only for his growth as a player, getting better, getting more repetition, stuff like that, but just as a leader. I think the leadership aspect I think that doesn't get enough attention at times, how much you really do need your quarterback to be a leader. And I think that's something that, Ohio State struggled with a couple years ago. And then you had Will Howard, who maybe Will Howard wasn't the most talented guy in the world, but he was a really good leader, worked on things that he needed to work on, and was transparent about what he needed to work on as well. And I think that resonates to the team, and I think it resonates to the fans as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, all right, Zach, let's move on here to what do we have next? Oh, yeah, the USC QB competition. Let me move this up. There we go. So, Zach, in this QB competition, we have Jayden Maiava. Sam Huard is probably going to be the third string, but he's getting mentioned in there as well. And then the freshman Husan Longstreet. A lot of conversation about what these three guys could kind of be. I've read a number of writers who feel pretty confident Jayden Maiava is going to be the guy. So I wouldn't say they're dismissive of Longstreet or anything like that, but they are definitely talking as if like, get Maiava ready. He's going to be the guy here. I do think there is some to talk about with like Husan Longstreet, especially with Miller Moss being transitioned out the way he was last year, correct? So we'll see. But overall, I think this QB competition is probably going to be Maiava's. I don't really have too much question on it. Are you in the same boat as me, or are you still kind of holding out for Longstreet a little bit?
I think it's Maiava. I don't think you bench Miller Moss unless you really believe in Maiava. And I think we've heard Lincoln Riley even say, the main thing that Maiava has to do is cut down on the turnovers, but he feels like he has good command of the offense. And we saw it last year. Like Notre Dame, they beat Notre Dame if he doesn't turn the ball over. And that was a good Notre Dame team. So I think it's Maiava. And
For sure.
yeah.
I think some people overblow the Maiava issues at the end of last year, and I think some people just want to hate on USC, right? And I get it. Like, their fans are not my favorites either. I quote tweeted one the other day on Twitter and said this is why we shouldn't have had free speech, which was overreaction, but at the same time it was meant to be funny. Okay, people, all right, it was meant to be funny. He said Jacoby Lane was better than Jeremiah Smith, and I just was like, what's the funniest line I can deliver off of this, and I don't know. I thought it was
Yeah.
pretty funny. So, but I think
What
overall,
was he smoking? That's my he's in California, so that answers
do
that
you have to ask?
question.
Do you
Yeah,
have to
no, I
ask?
don't. I did yeah, forget that.
No, I think at the end of the day though, like Maiava's your dude, and you need Maiava to be your dude. If you're Lincoln Riley, you don't want to go with another freshman quarterback. As good as Husan Longstreet is, we just talked about some of the issues that are not talent related with a true freshman quarterback, and we've talked about some of those as well with Bryce Underwood. It's not that anybody doesn't think Bryce Underwood is talented or anything like that. In the same situation here, nobody thinks Husan Longstreet isn't talented. It's just when you're a freshman QB, there are other hoops and other things you have to jump through other than just like, I'm getting used to playing football at this speed. There's so much more that goes into it. There's so much more command, everything else that your team needs. And I just think that Lincoln Riley is begging for Jayden Maiava to show he is the guy because it's going to be much smoother this season. And you know what? If that happens, you got a scapegoat again, and you can bench your QB for somebody else.
Yeah.
So, all right. A couple comments really fast before we get to a commercial break here. We got time. Let's get to a couple comments really fast.
We blazed through that.
We did, man. We did. We said we were going to be a shorter than an hour, and we really got through it. Billy Tuesday said, I could see Raiola balling out. One of the many things I'm excited to see this season. I am too, Billy. Raiola gets a lot of hate. And you know, it's Nebraska. People love to hate Nebraska like they love to hate USC, I guess. But overall, like I want Raiola to be good because I think Raiola could have transferred after this year, but he didn't, and I respect that.
Yeah. I say, I was just thinking Yankee asked a question above him. Should we get to that one as well before it's
Which one?
This one right here.
Okay. Well, Ohio State challenged them vertically. That is a question, fellas. Is he talking about Michigan?
Yep. Yeah.
I went back and watched that game the other day. Listen, I'm not trying to be a homer.
Why did you do that? Why would you torture yourself?
Because somebody said to me the other day that Ohio State got whooped by Michigan, and I was like, no, they did not. Like, they lost, yes, but it wasn't like they beat them like 42-10.
So you subjected yourself to that for that comment?
They won the national championship. I just turned that game on right afterward, and that was good. So
that's fair.
It's fine. But I did not recall how many times they did like interfere passes with Jeremiah Smith, though, which is a viable strategy. If you can't stop him, just do pass interference. It's a viable strategy. I'm not hating against it. And there were times when Jeremiah Smith had balls he could have went up and got, and instead they just, dragged him down or tore him down, and he had no chance of getting it. So again, not hating on it. It's a viable strategy, but it's not like the Michigan DBs were out there, locking up Jeremiah Smith the entire time. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were times when he was open. It wasn't like he was just locked up the entire time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And Yankees, he's like, they can challenge them vertically, but they didn't. I think that the thing is Ohio State is probably the one team that can challenge Michigan vertically on their schedule, but that's why it's so good that they now have a third corner that is elevating, because I think that like they, and 6'2", 200 pounds, to be able to interfere well with a guy like Jeremiah Smith, you need a big guy to tackle him essentially. So yeah, I'm still terrified for that game next year. Or this year. So that's my answer, Yankee. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, neither of us picked it for the upset, and I posted those on Twitter earlier. I've not really checked back since. I answered a couple, and I've not checked back since. So
we've gotten
be ratioed into oblivion, and I would have no idea right now. Okay. Mike Alibaba says, I disagree about the QB at USC. Maiava is the turnover machine. He's not consistently accurate enough. I want to see what Longstreet can do. I want to see what Longstreet can do too. I just don't think it's a viable strategy. I don't think Lincoln Riley coming off of 7-5 and 7-6. If he was 7-5, or not, what was he? Did he win the bowl game that year? 2 years ago? Yeah. They beat Louisville. So they were 8-5. So they're 8-5 and 7-6. I just like I'm with you, Mike. I want to see Longstreet too. But if I'm Lincoln Riley, I'm like, I cannot start a freshman quarterback. I can't
Yeah.
do it. Like he's obviously not going to get fired anytime soon because of his buyout and everything. But the Gers are going to be coming in full force for USC if they have another, 7, 8 win season with a bowl game or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good. And then as far as the turnovers, I mean, I've said it before. I think Maiava came into a situation too late, and he did move the ball down the field. But as we saw with Aiden Childs, like you can fix being a turnover machine. You can fix it, and
Yeah.
it's all just a matter of making it happen. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I think one thought. How much of Maiava's turnovers are because he felt the pressure to have to score? Because
Well, and that's possible too. Yeah.
and I like the defense was definitely schematically better and fundamentally better, but they still were not good defensively. And a lot of that was a lack of depth, lack of talent. I think that will be better this year. And actually one of my breakout players for USC is a defensive guy. So I think there is a potential that as the defense gets better, Maiava gets better. Now I could be wrong on that, but I just wouldn't. I would ride Maiava unless if it's very clear that it's like it's a dumpster fire, and at that point, just implode. Blow the thing up and try new things.
Well, and the offensive line too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we gave Miller Moss some crap because I don't think he was doing such a great job of doing checks and stuff like that at the pre-snap and stuff like that, and I felt like that was hindering his offensive line. But when you're a brand new quarterback like Jayden Maiava was, I mean, he started at UNLV the year before, but still getting thrown into the situation like that, I don't know. I mean, he definitely could have turnover issues again this season. I'm not saying it's a for sure fix. Like it's definitely something you have to get through and you have to get better at. But I would think with an offseason development and Lincoln Riley, like he's a good quarterback developer. Like he's really good. He's really good at getting Heisman winners. But he's gonna do a good job with him. So we'll see. If Maiava doesn't improve, to me, it's probably on him more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because everything else is put in place there. So appreciate the comment there, Mike. All right, let's hit a commercial really fast. Appreciate everybody being here. We'll get to the breakout players, and we're gonna probably try to go through the breakout players like boom, 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 and then do comments at the end. So I'll pay attention to comments and like star them and stuff like that. And then at the end of the breakout players, that's when we'll come back and address those and stuff like that. So if we're not bringing up your comments, it's not that we aren't seeing them. We're just trying to get through them. So we'll be right back after this. Have you ever wanted to watch all 22 film, that film the coaches watch? Well, now you can. Introducing the Coaches Film Room. Over at Minutes to Sports, former college coach Zack Smith breaks down film of the most relevant teams in college football with a bit of a Big Ten lead. It's not free, so you'll need to sign up for the Colonel tier, which is $25 a month, but I can attest to you that it is far more worth it than that. With about 4 to 8 games per week, this is worth so much more money, not to mention Zach's analysis, making you a smarter football fan. Go check it out. The links are in the description, minutestosports.com. You won't be sorry. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle, we appreciate you being with us. We are now going to name one breakout player for every single Big Ten team. I got to be honest. I mean, I was trying not to go like super easy here. Like I'm not picking Luke Altmaier for Illinois, stuff like that. And Zach, I saw your answers. I know you're not trying to do that too. So these are not like, hey, Dante Moore for Oregon. We're trying to go a little bit deeper than that. So could Dante Moore be the breakout player for Oregon? Yes, he definitely could. But that we're trying to go with names that are not being nationally talked about all the time, but guys that can make a difference this year. So Zach, let's go backward. Let's start with Wisconsin, and then we'll go all the way down to Illinois here at the end. We'll make the Illinois fans suffer and wait through the rest of them. I know Phil appreciates that. Zach, you have Wisconsin. Give us yours and who you think or why you think that is.
Yeah, so my breakout star is Darian Dupree, running back for the Badgers. He's a sophomore who started to get some meaningful carries really throughout the season, but especially at the end, had a couple of big games. He's probably going to be RB1. And with the way that they're shifting that offense, they are trying to get beefier up front, trying to be better on the run game. I think that means Darian Dupree is going to get a lot of carries. It'll probably be by committee, not like one big back, but I think he's going to be the guy that gets the most run. And I think he's going to be their breakout back.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick, especially running back for Wisconsin with what Jeff Grimes is going to do. I really, really like that pick. Zach, let's do Washington now. I'm going to go with the backup running back for them, Adam Muhammad.
Ooh.
About a week ago, Jed Fish came out, and you know what he called him? A
Mm-mm.
specimen.
Oh,
That's a pretty good word to be called by your head coach. He went on and on and on talking about just how good of a football player he is and everything that he's doing, his physicality, his ability to play football, everything that he is. I just more than anything, it sounded really good to me. But I also think that Jonah Coleman needs kind of that secondary running back there with him. I think Jonah Coleman is obviously going to have a really good season, but I think this is going to be one of those situations where people see Jonah Coleman in there and they're like, oh yeah, this is Jonah Coleman. And then Adam Muhammad is going to come in. He's going to make some plays, and people are going to be like, "Wait, I thought they just had Jonah Coleman." And so you're going to see him doing some really special things as well. And I think last year really showed teams that, the value of a two running back system, right? What Ohio State was able to do to not just, get their guys through the season, but also how fresh they looked with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson in the playoffs. Jed Fish is definitely a guy who's smart enough to be looking around, see what other teams are doing, and want to implement that himself. So Adam Muhammad, the specimen, we'll refer to him as from here on out on this show. There will be no other words used for him. He's my pick for Washington. Zach, comments on that, and then who you have for USC.
the specimen. I'm curious about the offensive line for Washington because if they're improved, Washington could be a dark horse in the
They
Big
have the
Ten
skill
race.
talent. Yeah, they have the skill talent, and they have the stars on defense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, USC, Cameron Fountain, defensive end. Connor Morissette from USCFootball.com, which is their 247 affiliate. He wrote that Fountain had arguably the biggest impact of any true freshman at USC last season, played 248 defensive snaps. He made 19 tackles with 2 sacks in 8 games. He is 6'6", 265. Fountain has the body of an NFL prospect. My thought, Danton Lynn needs a breakout from somebody in that front seven because I think the back seven can be good, but they just need someone to disrupt the timing of the quarterback.
Was pretty good last year. There just wasn't enough pressure at times. Yeah.
Right. And so I think Fountain could be a guy that really starts to put it together where he doesn't just flash, but he's actually consistently winning.
I think I said back seven. I just meant secondary. I don't know why I said back seven. I talk football. Okay.
I mean, back seven. I mean, it's legit. You have the front seven, you have the back seven. There's 14 players on the defense.
Let's just act like I never said that before. Okay, moving on to UCLA. My pick for UCLA is Quasi Gilmer, the 6'2", 180-pound sophomore wide receiver. UCLA wide receiver has been a question for me for a good amount of time now. I thought, they were doing well with Caden Robinson and who he could be, but Caden Robinson is actually not going to be coming back because he did not get his waiver coming from App State to UCLA. So he's not going to play this year. They're going to need somebody to step up in this wide receiver room. And I think Quasi Gilmer is going to be that guy. Sounds like coming out of spring camp, there's a lot of buzz for him. There's a lot of optimism about what he could be on the outside. Sounds like right now, the Joey Aguilar is having a good connection with him, throwing the ball well to him. He's beating guys on defense. And the UCLA secondary secondary. If those transfers hit, this could be an improved secondary for them as well. So overall, I like what I'm hearing. I haven't really watched all that much UCLA like spring tape, unfortunately, but from everything I'm hearing and from everything I'm hearing about the connection and stuff like that, sounds like this could be a good one for UCLA. So that's my pick. Zach,
Like
comments on that, and then Rutgers.
It's good. I like it. Rutgers going with Kyle Monungai's replacement, potential replacement, CJ Campbell. He is a transfer from Florida Atlantic, had over 1,300 yards running and receiving a year ago. They do have a bit of depth at running back, so he may not be RB1, but I think that's what people in New Jersey, what they think. And I think he's ready to show that he can be a big-time back at the Big Ten level.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that can come in and try to do what Kyle Monungai did, if he can even come close to that, breakout star for sure, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
All right, Zach, next, Purdue. I got to admit, this one was a little more difficult. Sorry, Purdue fans. No, I will say the redshirt freshman, Jamarion Harkless, you know what they call him? You know what they call him, Zach?
Not the specimen.
No, not the specimen. No, Purdue does not have specimens. Sorry, Purdue. Chop.
Wow. Chop.
Ooh. We call him Chop. All right. Listen, I saw a guy named Chop at Penn State do really, really well over there. And so I'm hearing about a guy over at Purdue named Chop, and he's going to do really, really well over there, in my opinion, too. No, but in all seriousness, he is an interior defensive lineman for Purdue. I question if I should name like interior defensive linemen sometimes, just because they don't put up the big stats and sometimes they don't get quite the recognition I think they deserve. But I do think when teams play against Purdue, there is the possibility, if Chop can have a good season. Thanks, Yankee. If Chop can have a good season and do a good job, I think he can be a team that, or a player that teams walk away from, kind of like Max Clare last year, right? People walked away from playing Purdue and they were like, man, that tight end was a matchup nightmare. I think you could see or hear some of the same stuff coming out of this. Maybe Jamarion Harkless isn't, a dude the entire game, just because it's hard to do that the entire time. But I think he can be a guy that at least disrupt things at the beginning of the game. And who knows? Maybe Purdue actually is good and they do have specimens. I'm just not going to bet on it.
Listen, Russ and DK from the Boiler Express are going to come on here and just rip us a new one when they upset somebody. So,
well, Russ told me, he said, it was either Russ or Dylan. I don't want to say it was definitely Russ, but one of them told me, they were like, look, you can talk as much crap about Purdue as you want until we win something, because we're not listening. All right. No. Sounds good.
Oh, no.
All right, Zach, you got Penn State.
This one was probably the easiest one, and it was Luke Reynolds. I think every Penn State fan, when we've said, well, Tyler Warren's moving on, that's going to be a big goal. Luke Reynolds! And I'm like, I'm a man of the people. I believe in the people. And darn it, Philip, do not talk to me about Kent State right now. Don't do it.
Say, when did John Jacobs get in?
What the heck? Luke, but it's funny. I really was like, I would love to say a wide receiver, but until a receiver actually breaks out, what does Penn State produce? They produce really good tight ends. Luke Reynolds is, I think, their only 5-star prospect the past couple of years, or one of a couple that they've had. It's got to be Luke Reynolds, right? Like, he's going to get a huge target share, even if it's not the same amount as Tyler Warren. He's going to have a huge target share. He's going to make a lot of plays, and there's no receiver yet that has proven themselves that makes me think that they're going to go away from the tight end.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, like, this is part of what Drew Allar's game is, right? Like, he wants to rely on the tight end. He wants to rely on the running backs. The Penn State guy did show us a little bit of film in the comment section of one of our videos of some of the receivers getting open, and I do want to give him credit for that. I think that some of the, wide receiver stuff that us and other people have said would have been a little overblown. But at the end of the day, like, if those wide receivers, I guess I'm not trying to put it on them. Like, if there's going to be recognition for the wide receivers at Penn State, like, Drew Allar has to start throwing to them. So whether they're open or not, he needs to start throwing to them down the field. And he did do that at times last year. He just got away from it eventually because I think he trusted Tyler Warren and his running back so much. So, is what it is. Okay.
Yep.
Zach, let's move on to Oregon. All right.
Mm.
Oregon, this was not all that difficult for me because there's a lot of hype right now with Evan Stewart coming back, right? He's probably going to be in the slot. I think it was William McBride was telling us that in one of the comments, which I appreciate when you guys comment. I do try to go through and listen to them and respond to them, unless you're just like a total jerk. And in that case, I don't respond to you. I just let you live your life. But Evan Stewart probably going to do a good job in the slot there. I looked that up. William McBride was completely correct. I appreciate that. DeCorian Moore has been getting a lot of recognition and a lot of talk for him. Deservedly so. He's a really good wide receiver coming in his freshman year, and I think people are really excited about him. But I think the wide receiver that's going to break out because people are talking about Evan Stewart and DeCorian Moore so much, I think it's going to be Justice Lowe. He is a wide receiver last year that came in, and he did a pretty good job when Tez Johnson got hurt, when other receivers went down and they weren't able to play. He came in and did a good job. I think that with, different wide receiver coach, he could kind of come in with maybe an ability to prove himself a little bit more. I don't want to make it sound like the other wide receiver coach was downplaying him, but I just, when you see a coaching change in the position room, sometimes that can shake things up a little bit, and I think that's going to provide opportunity for Justice Lowe here. So one of these wide receivers is going to do something. One of these wide receivers is going to get 700, 800 yards, in my opinion. Why not let it be Justice Lowe? That's my pick there. Zach?
I like it.
Thank you. You got the Buckeyes and then a commercial break.
There were a lot of options here because you have so many guys leaving, and so a lot of holes to fill, and a lot of 4 and 5 star guys to fill them. And I actually went with a guy who's probably going to rotate between positions, and I think could make impact both at defensive tackle and defensive end. That's Edric Houston. He was on the field. He made plays last year.
Very thin depth at the interior of the defensive line for Ohio State this year. So that's a good pick.
Yeah. So, sorry, and I think where like Sawyer and Tuimoloau, especially in the playoff, got a lot of pub. Tyleik Williams was the straw that stirred the drink in that defensive line. Like, was a big disruptor up the middle. He was often a big time run stuffer. Not that Tuimoloau and Sawyer weren't part of that, but I think people forget how impactful Tyleik Williams was in the middle. And not that Edric Houston doesn't have the same game as Tyleik, but I think he could do some similar things in terms of speed rushing up the middle, as well as run stuffing that could get him a lot of pub.
I like it. I think that the linebacker Arvell Reese is a good pick too. But I probably, if I was thinking between those two, I probably would go with Edric Houston too, because of the deficiency with the interior of the defensive line. Like, Arvell Reese is going to be a star with a bunch of other stars at linebacker this year.
Yep.
Still a breakout, but I think that Edric Houston really has the opportunity to break out as maybe another guy could step up, but probably the best interior defensive lineman, and he's going to get talked about it with him being a sophomore as well.
Yep.
So
yeah,
good pick there.
Thank you.
All right. Let's do a commercial really fast, and then we'll come back and I'll talk some Northwestern. Home Field is your go-to destination for premium collegiate apparel with a passion for comfort and a flair for vintage design. Home Field brings you gear that is comfortable and stylish. With over 150 colleges to choose from, Home Field digs deep into the archives, uncovering forgotten logos, iconic mascots, and legendary moments to create one-of-a-kind apparel. Use my code TBTH for 15% off for new customers, or use my link in the description. Back here on the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate you being with us. We're going to move on now to Northwestern. And Zach, my pick for Northwestern is defensive end Jayden Hubbard. I'm actually going to steal it from Adam Rittenberg. So thank you, Adam, for ESPN and giving us this one. Adam, one of the only writers that I really like at ESPN. But Adam, you are one of the reasons why I keep going back to that website, because I think you do a good job. Don't agree with everything Adam says, but I think he does a good job for the most part. He says Jayden Hubbard could be the breakout player. Past 2 seasons, he's had 12 sacks, 15.5 tackles. And Zach, the defensive end that's coming back that everybody's going to be thinking about is Anto Saka. Am I pronouncing that right? Do you know?
Okay. Saka.
They're going to be talking about how Saka is going to get the Saka, and it's actually going to be Aiden Hubbard. I know, terrible joke, right? Aiden Hubbard could be the one to get back there and wreak some havoc for the Northwestern Wildcats. And I also think this is another piece of David Braun. I think David Braun is going to continue to have good defensive lines at Northwestern. Maybe they won't have, like the best guys in the world or the best dudes in the world, but they're going to have respectable defensive lines at Northwestern, and I think that's going to be a key for them there. Zach, do you want to make fun of me saying Saka for sack and then move on? And
no, I'm just
please quickly move on to Nebraska.
We'll just move on. I do agree with your thought about good defensive line for Northwestern. I don't know, man. I think Northwestern is going to. They do this up and down every year, and I think defensive line could be the reason why, because I think they're better on the D line, and I think Hubbard and Saka they're going to be an underrated duo in the Big Ten this year.
Hubbard and Anto are going to get a lot of Sakas. Okay, please stop me. Go ahead.
Okay, Nebraska. I've got someone who has been a mainstay of Nebraska, but is switching positions. And that's Heinrich Haarberg, the former quarterback turned tight end. He's got really good athleticism. I think Matt Rule has already, he has already tried to get him touches, even with Dylan Raiola at quarterback. He's done some wildcat with him, been a running quarterback. I think he is going to be more and more of a Taysom Hill type player, where you just have him in a lot of different roles. But I think as he learns the tight end position, I think he becomes a mismatch as well. You can split him out wide. You can put him in line. You can put him in the backfield. He can throw out of it. And so I think you're going to see Haarberg be more of an every down player. And I think he's going to make a big impact because you need a safety valve over the middle of the field. And he's going to exploit some folks. So I've got Heinrich Haarberg as tight end. Heinrich.
Right. Kind of German there. Okay, gotta get the back of the
Heinrich.
Okay,
Heinrich.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, sorry.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think Haarberg is a gamer. I think that he is a guy that's going to do anything and everything he possibly can to help his team get out there on the field. I don't know if Haarberg puts up like great numbers this year. Like I don't know if he's going to be, like 500 receiving yards and stuff like that, but I think he's going to be somebody kind of like Chop, where he's going to make a difference, and when you play them, you're going to see him, notice him, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, he didn't have the best stats in the world coming out of that game, but we recognized him out there.
I feel like you could see him having like 25 catches for 300 yards, but like 7 touchdowns, and then maybe 60 carries for like 111 yards and like 8 touchdowns, because you use him as a goal line back, or I just feel like he's going to be one of those guys where his yards per touch isn't all that great, but he gets you first downs and touchdowns.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, Zach, Minnesota. So I want to preface this by saying we've talked so much about the wide receivers and the cornerbacks and everything about Minnesota so far this year. I feel like I'm just repeating myself if I say Javon Tracy. That's who I probably think will be the breakout player for Minnesota. And this is the hard part about doing a Big Ten show. Like I've mentioned so many of these guys that to me, they won't be breakout players, but to other people, they will be. So Javon Tracy is the answer here. But in order to try and be a little bit different, I'm actually going to go with the freshman linebacker, Emmanuel Carmo, one of those two is how you pronounce it. Zach, freshman linebacker, number 1 player in the state of Minnesota, was getting looked at by a number of blue bloods last year in the recruiting realm, but he decided to stay home. And I watched PJ Fleck do some of his press conference talking about Emmanuel Carmo, and he could not stop glowing in talking about how incredible this true freshman is, everything that he's able to do. I don't know if Emmanuel is going to be like an every down linebacker for him, but I could see him being a third down, pass rusher, somebody that gets in the backfield and somebody that is going to be coming at you on third down, wreaking havoc in the backfield. So that's kind of what I see for Minnesota and him. Again, Javon Tracy, probably the guy, but I'm going to go with Carmo and a little bit deeper cut there.
You're going with the Coy Parrish approach.
Yeah, I want another freshman, which this is this is what PJ Fleck does, right? Like, he's going to do it. So
yeah, I think it's a good pick.
I believe in PJ.
I think it's a good pick.
All right. You go. What do you got next? Michigan State. Go ahead.
Michigan State. I've Justin Denson, who's a defensive back. Emmett Matasovsky of Spartan Shadows. He wrote that Denson was the most utilized freshman not named Nick Marsh last year. He played early and often. He saw the field on special teams against Maryland. Then he worked his way into a starting safety role by the end of the year. I think this is a guy that's really going to be a mainstay in that defensive backfield, which again is a big deal. Like, you need guys who can really step up in that realm in this conference, especially with who Michigan State plays. You've got SC, you've got Nebraska, you have Indiana, you have Minnesota, they all have good receiver rooms. I think Denson is a guy who can really stabilize that back seven, and I think he's going to have a big year.
I like it. That's a good pick. There's a lot of guys in the Michigan State secondary, I probably would say. So I like you with that one. Okay, next up, we will go with Michigan. And for Michigan, I am actually going to go pretty again, this is another one that we've talked about a lot, but I just really believe it's going to happen, so I want to reiterate it. I think a lot of people are going to be talking about Justice Haynes, but I think Jordan Marshall is going to be that breakout guy. It's going to be the 1-2 punch of this Michigan backfield. I think that Sharon Moore is making an effort to get this offensive line right from what they were last year. Not that they were bad last year, but there was definitely areas for improvement, and they did improve throughout the year. Give them credit for that. But I think Sharon Moore is going to get this offensive line right. Jordan Marshall is going to be a guy that, there's not really going to be losing much, with Haynes coming off the field and Marshall coming in. And honestly, Zach, like, my hot take for Michigan football this year is Jordan Marshall gets 1,000 yards rushing because he eventually becomes your number one running back.
Yeah.
Or he's the number one running back at the beginning of the year. It would not surprise me at all.
When I talked with the guys from Maize and Brew last year, this is when Marshall was a freshman, they were stoked about Jordan Marshall.
And I think the reason he didn't get his time is because they promised Donovan Edwards time. Like, I think if they didn't promise Donovan Edwards time, I think Marshall would have been a dude last year, right?
Yeah, well, and Khalil Mullings really broke out as well.
Right.
So, but I think they thought he would have a bigger role, and now he's going to have a bigger role. Like, I think he might, as good as we think Justice Haynes is going to be, I think Marshall's going to be the better back.
Could be. All right. Your next one here, Zach. Maryland.
I am planting a flag. It's my only quarterback pick, Justin Martin, who I think people are cautiously optimistic about after some of his time at UCLA. I think
did well against Penn State.
Yeah.
On the road. Yeah.
Yeah. On the road against a really good defense with not many playmakers. I think Justin Martin, I think he might be able to stabilize Maryland and at least get to a bowl game. I think he's going to play well, running and throwing. He's got natural talent, natural ability. I just think Justin Martin. The other thing about Justin Martin is he doesn't have to live in the shadow of Tunga Vailoa like Billy Edwards did. So I know there's a lot of excitement about Malik Washington, but I think Justin Martin is going to be the guy, and I think he's going to become a star.
That's what I was going to say, was there is a world out there where Justin Martin doesn't play bad, but he's not a star enough that they move on and go to Malik Washington. Malik Washington, local kid, very well known. People are going to be vying to see him. It's honestly like, it's not the same thing here, but it's honestly kind of similar to Bryce Underwood, where everybody locally knows him and will want him to play. And Justin Martin, I mean, he's going to take snaps, I think, at the beginning of the year. But like I said, if he's not anything special, I could see them going to Malik Washington halfway through the year, game 8, game 9, something like that.
Yeah. My one thought, and I could be wrong about this, whereas Mikey Keene is very much like he's a bridge quarterback. I'm not sure Justin Martin is a bridge. I think he could be a star. And I think he will be.
I like to hear it. All right, Zach. For Iowa, Zach, are you aware that Iowa did not have a single defensive lineman or a single defensive end get any votes? Any votes? Didn't even make it. Get any votes to be on the all Big Ten teams last year?
Based on how they played last year, I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either, but I think that changes with Max Llewellyn, defensive end for Iowa, had 35 pressures last year, trailed only, who was the starter? I'm blanking on him. Yaha Black moved on, but he was an interior defensive lineman. Anyway, that's going to bother me until I remember his name. I apologize, but Max Llewellyn is the other side of the defensive line that I think is going to be a little bit underrated, especially coming after last year. Iowa fans are going to know him, and Iowa fans are going to believe in him because of what he did last year, but without much national recognition for the Iowa defense, I'm not sure if this Iowa team gets back to 8 or 9 wins again. I'm not going to predict that. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, but I think if they're going to try and get to anywhere close to that, it needs to be, there needs to be production from Max Llewellyn. And if that happens, he'll be a breakout star for them. So that's my
pick. It.
Good All pick. Right. You got Indiana, Zach. Show us your Indiana pride.
My last pick. I'll be very honest. I got an assist here from JR because I was like, I can't go Mendoza because I feel like that's too obvious. I can't go with Roman Hemby because I'm like, he's been at Maryland for like a bajillion years, but like, I was like, I feel like those two guys are probably the biggest breakouts. So I'm like, who is going to be a good one? And JR reminded me of a young man by the name of Amari Farrell, safety, who he had a big impact. He started last year in the back half of the season. I think he's going to improve on that. But I think what's exciting about Farrell, just as I was reading a little bit more, is that Farrell is a guy who is leading a very young but very talented safety room. Because Boykin's coming in from NC State, and you have 2 impact freshmen in Baldwin and Stewart who are going to be nipping at his heels. But I think Farrell, with his talent, with his experience, I think is going to be a big time player.
I like it. Leadership role for Farrell this season could be special for him. So,
by the way, Blue Wolverine, we appreciate it, brother. Yeah. Thank you.
Says hello, gentlemen. Appreciate it, Blue Wolverine. Really, really appreciate you being here. We're gonna get to the comments here in just a second, guys. So we're not ignoring you. If you're making comments and stuff, we will get to you. We're trying to finish up our breakout players here, and we are going to finish them up with the why am I blanking right now?
Illinois.
Illinois. I don't know why I was blanking on that. I didn't have my sheet up in front of me. I was looking something up. All right, so Illinois here, they're going to have a breakout wide receiver. This was the only one where I could not pick because I think there are so many options for Illinois to have a breakout wide receiver here. I just don't know which one it's going to be. So right now, my options are Hudson Clement, the leading wide receiver for West Virginia last year, Justin Bowick, the big frame wide receiver who's coming in from Eastern Illinois, Braden Trimble, the freshman who's coming in, local kid. I think he was a 3-star kid, but I watched some of his tape. I don't think he's going to be I don't think he was really 3-star worthy. I think he was better than that. And then another one, and I have to give credit to Sonny Verma from Locked On Illini with this one. He was telling me Colin Dixon, sophomore wide receiver, that's who he says he would pick as his breakout player. So That's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the expert. I'm going to go with Sonny Verma and say Colin Dixon. But honestly, if any of these wide receivers, Philip says too, Hank Betty, like there are so many wide receivers for this Illinois team that can be very good for them and can break out for them. It's just which one is going to do it. All of them have options to be able to do it. It's just about which one is going to.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
All right. If you are listening on podcast, this is where we're going to end the show because we are doing our best to try and be done within an hour on podcast. So if you're listening on podcast, we're going to end it here. We appreciate you. If you ever want to get in the chat and spat it up with us and stuff like that, we encourage that. That's what we're going to do now. But we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you listening on podcast. We're going to hit the music really fast, and then we'll come back and talk about the comments. So give us 5 seconds. We'll be right back. Zach, we did it.
Under an hour.
Under an hour.
Under an hour.
How about that?
Yeah. And somewhere Philip is lurking saying 4 hours.
Yes, he's saying, well, he says 2.5. Let's give him credit. He doesn't ask for 4 hours. So.
He did once.
One time.
It was a Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Well, can't really can't do it on Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
All right. So here's the plan, Zach. I'm gonna go through the starred. Not 2 hours of comments. 4 more hours. Thanks, John. All right, Zach, I'm going to pull up the starred ones here, and then I want you to keep track of the ones at the bottom if you feel like there's anything they're saying at the bottom. That way we don't miss any. Is that good?
Sounds good. Yep.
All right. So very first comment. I meant to go with Billy. He says, Arvell Reese, breakout player for Ohio State.
Yeah. So to be fair, I had 4 guys I thought of for Ohio State. Arvell Reese was one. Edric Houston, obviously. Jermaine Matthews. And then Brandon Ennis was my 4th.
Brandon Ennis would have been a good pick. It's hard to break out though when you got Jeremiah Smith in your position, right?
Yeah, but you're yeah. I was thinking somebody's got to pick up the void of Emeka, and I was like, Ennis is probably going to be that. So, yeah. But I think Arvell. I was probably most torn between Arvell and Edric.
Yeah. Jason says, folks better learn the name. Trimble, wide receiver from Illinois, is pushing through upperclassmen in spring ball. Look, this is exactly what I was saying. I literally, as we were going through this, I saw probably 3 or 4 different wide receivers for Illinois mentioned here. And I was like, guys, you're all going to agree with me here at the end when I do my Illinois pick because this really seems like the entire thing. So I don't know, Zach, you have a preference to any of the wide receivers I mentioned on Illinois?
No, I mean, I think you got to kind of wait it out because a lot of them are just either new or unproven, and so like who really separates? And it sounds like Trimble is starting to separate. Is one. So, Dave's here has an interesting comment here.
Go ahead.
It's just Voice of College Football did like 19 hours because they said they would stay an hour per $100 on Bryce Underwood signing.
I mean, that's good for them. They made what, $1,900 in one night off super chats.
Yeah,
we make $5 from Wolverine, and we're throwing a party.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we're not gonna use.
You wouldn't do 19 hours for $2,000, Zach?
It's not. I mean, if we planned it that way, sure, and if people wanted to do that, sure, but. I also, I want to sleep, but B, I don't want people to feel like they're obligated to give us $100 an hour. Like that feels, I don't know. I'm not saying that they were being exploitative. That's not what I'm saying. But
Shots
I'm also
coming from Zach tonight.
No, yeah, you know what? I'm just not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm just not going to say it. I don't know how I feel about it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. All right. Mike said Javon Tracy is my pick. He's likely wide receiver 1 for Minnesota and gives a short to do big things and hit 1,000 yards receiving. Tracy becomes Daniel Jackson type offensive focal point. I mean, it's exactly why I was going to pick Javon Tracy. I just didn't want to say the same name that I've been saying this entire time. But do not sleep on Minnesota's wide receiver development. It's better than people give it credit for.
Yeah. Agreed.
HJG says CJ Campbell, the Rutgers. Was that who you said for Rutgers?
Mm-hmm.
Man, look at this. We are just so on point tonight. Philip, I don't know why. I just thought this was funny. Chopped liver. That should be his nickname. Your chopped liver when you get in Chop's way. I don't know. And then I couldn't live this one down, Zach. Purdue upsets Kent State. How many specimen would be on the field in Purdue versus Kent State? None.
I need to see another Penn State game where they play someone other than Kent State. Otherwise it's just never. I'm never gonna live it down.
Who do they play in the out of conference this year? They play
gosh.
Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. Let the people vote. People, which one should Zach go see? Nevada, FIU, or Villanova? And which one should he come back with a scouting report on for us? Not Penn State, the other team.
It'd be fun. I don't know if I could do it because it might fall when I have a conference, but I bet I could get into that Northwestern game. That would be.
You could probably get into any of them. You've gone before. Once you go once and you behave yourself, you can pretty much go anytime, can't you?
They give preference to like they're doing press box renovations right now, so they're about to shrink the list. So
we'll just find when Adam Rittenberg goes there. And you can tell him to be a mole inside of ESPN for us.
Yes, with all of my power and influence.
Billy Tuesday said D Moore the receiver. Yeah, D Moore the receiver, not D Moore the quarterback. I love that. That's a joke. Because seriously, what are they gonna do with their names on the back of the jersey? It's gonna be Dak Moore and Dan Moore.
They should just make up. They could be like Key and Peele and make up names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hingle McCringleberry.
Well, and you saw what Colorado did, right? They put their like Twitter usernames on theirs. But they did it for practice. Right. I don't think they did it for a game.
That's not right. That should be punishable by that should be against the law.
Well, Zach, there's a lot of people that want to punish Deion Sanders, but
that's fair.
Deion Sanders, so he does what he wants. I would have really been in favor for the spring game thing, though. Him and Fran going up against each other, I would have loved that. Fantastic. Philip says, are you doing a bust player of each team? That's an interesting topic. I'm going to write that down, Philip. Listen, if you guys ever have ideas for stuff like this, like I literally just pull this stuff out of nowhere, or I get an idea from an article that I saw. So if you guys ever have any ideas like for this kind of stuff, please feel free. Like if you guys want to see, I try to stay away from rankings because everybody gets so mad at rankings. I mean, I'll do it, but like when we did our quarterback rankings, we legitimately had people in the comments that were like, "I'm never watching this show again," and it's like, I mean, I don't think it was that bad, but. So, Philip says ESPN and SEC sucks segment. You got anything, Zach?
Apparently, this is from Kings of the North. Apparently, Kirby Smart was complaining again about a resolution about NIL. And
yeah,
they made a good point where it's like Kirby Smart should be an ambassador for college football, being like the elder statesman who's won the most national championships. Also, like, you're talking about how bad it is for you when you are probably the one that's benefited the most from NIL. So, like, maybe, like, shut your mouth. Or, like, maybe don't talk about how bad it is for you. Like,
listen, if we were doing our rankings again, Juck has convinced me. I would go the Juck route, and I would put Ryan Day number 1.
At this point, because of Kirby Smart's shenanigans, I would too.
How does he not get labeled as the whiner? Like Ryan Day gets labeled as the whiner, and I got it. Like when he wasn't winning, like I understood that. They don't do it so much now, but like Kirby Smart's out here not even winning playoff games the past 2 years, and he's trying to act like he's the god of college football, and I'm like, dude, get off your high horse. He's a good football coach. Like, there's nothing. Yeah. Of course,
nothing
he's a good
about
football
that.
Coach.
I am tired of the lack of accountability. We've said this a lot, but I'm going to continue to say it until there's accountability. I don't really care what you have to say about the state of college football when you let a lot of things go unchecked in your program. Like, dude, like we rip coaches all the time. At least they make sure that their players go the speed limit.
My smoke alarm is doing the really annoying thing where it's out of batteries downstairs.
Oh,
It keeps beeping every
no.
5 seconds. So if I go insane while we're going through the comments here. But yes, no, I totally agree with you. And I find coaches that complain about college football stuff when their players are doing terrible things, not terrible things, but doing bad things like breaking the law, just as annoying as my smoke alarm
Yeah.
beeping with low battery.
Yeah.
John says Purdue starting DB
Marcavius
Brown just entered the portal per Pete Nakos. Well, it's about that time. Purdue was one of the first teams to start their spring football. Did you hear that Aaron Nolan might be going to Purdue, Zach?
I think you said this on Sunday.
Did I? Okay.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I think
he was on the
ahead.
sideline for Ohio State when they played Purdue.
Scouting. He was scouting them up.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure that made him so excited.
Yeah. No, this is going to start happening with Purdue. There's going to be a bunch of players that go into the portal from them because they got a bunch of players in from the portal. They're going to probably not start and try to go someplace else. So, and then, I mean, whenever team ends their spring practice, not just Purdue, everybody. But thanks, John. We appreciate you letting us know. Alibaba says Carmo is a great pick. He's likely going to get pass rush specialist snaps. Awesome. I appreciate that, Mike. John says Elijah Surratt. Is he a breakout?
He's already broken out.
I was going to say, he kind of already broke out, right?
He's very good.
Yeah.
I love Elijah Surratt.
I do too. All right. Were there any we missed here? All right. John said, did you see Indiana isn't going to play UConn anymore in the fall? I saw something about that. Who do they play now?
Well, it's for 2026, not 2025.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State this year. I mean, is that really a big thing, though? Like, are people going to make up a big deal about that like they did Nebraska, Tennessee? Which I'm not saying is not a big deal. I'm just saying, like, are they going to blow it up like that? Like, they shouldn't.
No, but I could see where, like, not that UConn's good, but they are definitely an upgrade from Kennesaw State. And, like, they were a better out-of-conference opponent. And now their only out-of-conference game scheduled at this point for 2026 is Colorado State. Like, they need 2 games. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this close to 2025, you're what, a year and a half away?
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be able to schedule anybody big. It's going to have to be somebody small.
Yeah.
But UConn wasn't exactly big in the first place, so.
Yeah.
By
the way, you know who Ohio State plays in 2026?
Texas again?
They do play Texas, but you know who else they play?
I don't know. Who?
Kent State.
Oh. You're going to pick the upset for next year.
No.
It's like, Zach, that game's not played in 2025. I don't care. Upset alert.
I'm pretty sure Ohio State's 5th string. I'm pretty sure their student body would beat Kent State.
Ouch. That's what you get when you don't have any specimen on your team. So. Kinetic, didn't see you get here. He's here. Thanks for being here, Kinetic. He says, because of the constant attempts to convince us that's a tough team right there, which convinces no. I think he's talking about Ryan Day and the complaining and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I think I was on record saying, like, I liked that Ryan Day got fiery after that Notre Dame game and, you know, stuck up for his guys. But at the end of the day, like, nobody's convinced by you saying we're a tough team, right? Like, people have to see it on the field. And I think they did show it in the playoff run, but you know, you got to show now you got to there's one team left Ohio State has to show it against. And no, I don't think they got whooped that entire game, but they weren't able to run the ball consistently enough. So nobody's going to believe it by saying it. You got to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, and to your point, I think at Ohio State winning the national championship cures a lot of ills, But I think what's frustrating is I think a lot of people have held Ryan Day accountable to things that at the grand scheme of life isn't that big of a deal. Whereas Kirby Smart has not been held accountable for a lot of things that are a big deal. And I think that's the frustration. Is like, why are we magnifying? Like, I get it. It's college football. It's rivalry. Great. Ryan Day has run a very clean program. At least there no things have been like egregious in the program.
Well, they had the two dudes like in like 2021, I think it was, that left the team.
Well, they were dismissed. Like,
yeah, and I think that came back. I don't remember exactly what happened in that, but they didn't go to prison or anything for that. So, I guess it just depends on what your definition is. Like, I think Ohio State's been a very clean program under Ryan Day, but I could see somebody pointing to something like that. But again, I'd say they never like got convicted for it. So I don't know. Doesn't mean they didn't do it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Penn State guy says hello. Hello, Penn State guy. We were referencing you earlier in your clips that you showed us in the comments section.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciated that.
Yes.
Anything else? I think that about does it. Other general chat stuff. Oh, here we go. Philip. One last Kent State, and then we'll get out of here, Zach. If Kent State covers the spread against Ohio State, Zach has to do the show in a hot dog costume.
No, Philip. No.
Zach,
I reject it.
Are you confident enough that Ohio State will cover the spread?
That's not the issue. The issue is if by chance they would not cover the spread, that means I have to buy a hot dog costume, and I am too cheap to buy a hot dog costume.
How high is too high of a spread for Ohio State, Kent State? Like, if the spread is 19, you're
asking the wrong question. The question is, how much money am I willing to pay for something like that? Which is, it's not very high.
Yeah. I'm just asking, like, what spread is too high that you're like, oh, I feel iffy on this? Like, if the spread is 20, obviously we're all comfortable with Ohio State beating Kent State by that much.
Honestly,
but if the spread is 70, then it's like, okay, that's too high.
Yeah, I mean, I would think. So this is my guess, knowing that you're gonna have Jeremiah Smith.
I could just see Philip going to the store and buying a hot dog costume just to.
If Philip buys it for me and ships it to me, and I don't have to pay a dime, I'll do it. The issue is not the issue is not me looking like a fool. The issue is I'm too cheap for it. I'm gonna get a hot dog suit in my mail.
Zach has to eat 10 hot dogs on the show.
I will do that. I will absolutely do that.
That's funny.
That's funny. There we go.
Philip says spread's gonna be 50.
I mean, the variables too, because if they get up 42-0 at half, and then they're like, all right, third stringers in, like, just anything can happen at that point.
Yeah.
So
I'd say anything 40 and under, I'm feeling good with.
Yeah.
But anything over 40, I'm like, there's a chance, because like you said, there's a chance Ohio State gets up, 38-0, and Ryan Day's like, all right, backups go on it.
Yeah.
The backups just are not put together well enough. So
yeah, I feel like this year Ohio State against the spread, they weren't great. At least not until the playoff. The playoff, they were fire.
I was gonna say, I think they ended with an okay record. It was the SEC that was terrible against the spread.
Yeah,
Georgia in particular.
Yeah, let me chat GBT this real quick.
Okay, chat GBT it. I'll answer this from the Penn State guy. He said, did the clips open your eyes a bit to see Penn State wide receivers not as bad as people think? I they were getting separation and they were open. Some of them I did wonder like how long it took, but that's also on Drew Aller, because Drew Aller is not waiting long enough, and he probably needs to trust his offensive line more. So no, I think you made a good point, the Penn State guy, with your videos. I still think, Penn State wide receivers have not been, I shouldn't say are not, have not been anything spectacular, but yeah, they're not as bad as people have been saying. Probably.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would say. So yeah, it did open my eyes, the Penn State guy, and we appreciate it. All right, last thing. You got anything from chat?
Philip says 83 hot dogs in 10 minutes. No, absolutely not.
That's 8.3 hot dogs a minute.
Dude, I'm not Kobayashi or Joey Chestnut. We're not doing that.
It wouldn't even be worth it having Zack on the podcast. It'd be like, Zack, what are your thoughts on Illinois? Yeah. Very eye-opening on Drew being hesitant to throw the ball to guys downfield, which was interesting because he got better at it last year. He just didn't remain consistent with it.
It's still a weakness. And
I wonder if he is one of those guys that predetermines where he's going to go with the ball, but before every snap.
Yeah. Just something that he's got to get to the next level. He's got to do better.
Right.
Yeah. Ohio State was 6-6 in the regular season against the spread.
Okay, so that's not terrible. It's not good, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
What were they? They covered the spread in every playoff game, though, right?
Yes, I believe so.
They did 10-6. 10-6 is really good.
That's fantastic. But yeah, they didn't cover against Akron. They covered against Western Michigan. They did not cover against Marshall. So that would be my concern, is in non-conference games, like they had a 49-point spread against Akron that they did not cover. They won by 46. They had a 37-point line against Western Michigan. They won by 56. There was a 40-point line against Marshall. They won by 35. It's like, yeah, I don't feel comfortable about any of those. Not because I don't think they won't obliterate them, but because it's like, especially early in the season, they start slow. Then they call off the dogs. They want to get a lot of people reps. Yeah, I just don't want. I don't want to touch it.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Comments are running thin at this point, so this will probably be normally what we do from now on, just to try and keep the show under an hour. We'll probably do our last segment, no comments and everything, and then just kind of star them as we go throughout, and then address them afterward. We'll call it comment time, I guess. I don't know. We'll figure something out, but we appreciate you being here. Zack, thank you for your time being here on another Tuesday night. We'll see you again Sunday night. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
This is fun. I will not eat 83 hot dogs. Sorry, Philip.
Understood. Later, Kinetic. Appreciate you being here. Later, everybody else. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.